Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for taking the time to be a part of today's session. My name is Laura from DigiConnect, and we are delighted to host everyone today. So for today's session, we are on what digital looks like in the government. We'll be looking at real-life examples of successes in digital transformation, and it is hosted with our presenting partner, OpenText. Just before we start, allow me to take you through a few housekeeping rules that will guide us in this boardroom. So please, let's put our cameras on. Depending on where you are, if it is not suitable for you to keep your cameras on, that's totally fine. And as you may have noticed, all participants are kept on mute to avoid any distraction, any background noises. And also note that if at any point the call gets dropped, you can always join back using the same link and we will be able to admit you back into the call. Finally, please note that we would like to make this session as interactive as possible. We would love for you to be a part of the conversation by posting your comments or your questions in the comment box or in the chat box, and we will make sure that they're responded to. So without wasting so much time, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker for today, Mr. Kareem Rizqallah. Kareem is the Director Solution Consulting for OpenText. And Kareem, over to you.
Thank you very much, Laura. And welcome everyone. And thank you very much for joining our session today. We're very excited to host this session that, as Laura mentioned, is going to talk about what digital looks like in government. My name is Kareem Rizqallah. I head the Solution Consulting team for the Middle East region. And I will be hosting this session with a panel of some of our colleagues, starting with Mohammed Seer, who is the Digital Government and Public Sector Consulting Leader for Middle East and Africa at EY. We're delighted to have Mohammed. Mohammed is a regular supporter of ours in these roundtables. We also have Brian Schuster, who is the Head of Worldwide Industry Strategy for Public Sector at OpenText. And last but not least, Garrett Otto, who is a Senior Solution Consultant at OpenText. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating and for the insights that we're going to have in this session. So the topic today, as I mentioned, is around digital transformation in government. And I'd like to introduce to you the agenda. First of all, we're going to have some opening remarks about the topic, just for me to set the scene about what the topic is and how does OpenText look at digital in government and how we have supported a number of government organizations complete their digital transformation objectives. We're going to have a fireside chat with the experts that I just introduced. And then we're going to have a very exciting showcase about a solution in OpenText called DGGov, which really aggregates everything that we're going to be talking about into one framework. And we are very excited to be showing it to you through a simple demonstration with the help of Garrett from the Solution Consulting team. And of course, we're going to have our Q&A. So feel free throughout the conversation, if you have any questions, to drop them in the chat, and we're going to keep close eye on them and try to answer as many as possible. So I'd like to start with a simple personal story about a recent family trip that I took for a European country a couple of months ago. As with almost everybody, before we were traveling to that country, we needed obviously to issue our entry visas. So like everyone does, I had to consult the website of the consulate for that country, where I found very clear instructions about the visa process, about all the documents that are required for me to submit, especially now with the travel restrictions and challenges that come with the pandemic. So all the documentation were very clear, and I was able to have a very nice user-guided experience during the entry process and during the submission of the visa process. Having gone into that country and having started our vacation, a couple of days prior to our departure date, I received an email and an SMS reminding me that the regulation for my home-based country mandates that I have to do a PCR test. And that is, of course, because in the visa process, I had supplied to them my, my flight ticket information, as well as my hotel booking. So they were able to know when I was exiting the country, and they were able to identify from the location where I am, the hotel that I booked, where was the nearest PCR testing center that I can go to in order to complete my, my testing. And then upon the exit process itself, I received in a timely manner the PCR results for myself and my family through the channel of communication that I had indicated, which was by email, and we were able to find it and to be able to use it to go back to our country. Unfortunately, this very nice story is a complete lie, I'm sorry to say, because as it indicates, this story paints a picture of a government that is following what we say a whole of government approach, where a ministry of immigration or an agency that is looking at the immigration processes within a country is able to communicate with the Bureau of Tourism within a particular city to pass on information, which is going to pass it on to the Ministry of Health, which is supposed to be issuing the results of the PCR tests, right? So it looks like a very streamlined process that flows very nicely, and obviously that gives the citizen or the tourist a very nice experience when they're going into that country. But unfortunately, they were not up to the level in digital transformation that they needed to do. What actually happened is that the information that was on the consulate's website was not up to date. And we found that going into the visa center, there were documents that they required that we did not know of. And obviously we had to pay them another visit. Furthermore, there were documentation that we were asked to print and fill going into the country. And what happened is that the immigration officer in the airport never actually asked for those documents. So again, it was misinformation that was put on the website. When trying to actually find where we can do our PCR test, there was a recent change in the regulation in the country whereby prior to our arrival, they had accepted that PCR tests can be done in pharmacies, but then they changed it and the information was not properly propagated to tourists within that country. And after having done the PCR test, the SLA was supposed to be 24 hours and we received our results, and it took actually more than that, and we were at risk at losing our flights or missing our flights. So again, this shows really how fragmented the different government agencies within that country was, right? And this brings me to the evolution of digital in government, because that particular country, I can say within the scale that we see here in front of us, I would put them within what we call an e-government, right? An e-government is really a terminology that started in the early 2000s, where the focus was around building some intelligence and some automation in some of the services that are being offered to citizens as well as expats. But there was no real transformation that was happening, right? There was disconnect between those services, one and the other. And there was also a limitation in the scalability that those services were how they were offered, because in some cases, those services were not able to accommodate a surge in requests, or were not updated in a timely manner in order to accommodate changes that are happening at a large scale. And that shows obviously that within an e-government approach, citizen centricity is on the lower scale, and it doesn't really take a front end seat. Now, where we stand today with a lot of governments that we work with is that they are moving bit by bit toward becoming a digital government. But what we're doing, what they're doing actually is digitizing the front end. So building very nice mobile applications or front end websites through which you can find and access a lot of the services that they're providing. but the back end is still quite manual, and it still takes a lot of time for a process to complete. And there are sometimes gap within the ability to deliver those services. And part of that challenge is because legacy is still quite a problem that exists within those organizations. Legacy systems, which are antiquated applications that have maybe been modernized or migrated from, are still existent, and there's still a lot of information or a wealth of information that is sitting within those applications that cannot be freed up. And that obviously slows down the process of transformation. Add to that the pandemic and the disruption that happened. And with that, we saw a lot of movement in digital government towards telework, telehealth, virtual education for schools and universities and so on. So that was a push forward into achieving some of the objectives of digital governments. But what we're seeing is that today, governments should aspire to become truly digital governments, right? And that really goes to say that there are certain problems that they need to start breaking down and solving. One of them is cybersecurity, which is top of mind for every CIO and every IT organization within any government agency. Adopting a whole of government approach, much like the example that I was giving, and really adopting the interconnectedness between the different government agencies so that a digital service can flow from one agency to the other without disruption and without the need for the citizen or the requester of that service to have a constant follow-up on the status of that service. And to look at re-engineering the back end and really adopting agile platforms that will allow you to have inbred integration with a lot of the line of business applications that you're using, and start to automate a lot of the back end processes that would allow you to become agile and flexible in the face of disruptions that might happen in the future, as COVID has shown us. So if you look at the DNA and the common traits of a truly digital government, right, it starts with personalization. And it starts with the notion that a service that is being provided to me as a citizen should look a lot more different than if I was a tourist, an expat, or a corporate, right? And when I'm logging into a government's website or portal, the experience that I should be presented with should be completely different. And the services that I'm presented with should be completely different. But that also needs to depend on a digital identity, a unique digital identity for the citizen, for the corporate, that would allow for the government to identify and to be able to understand who you are at any given point of time throughout the life cycle of the corporate or of the individual, right? The services that are being provided need to be provided in an omni-channel fashion. So it needs to take into account your preferred channel of communication, and it needs to give you a consistent user experience or citizen experience wherever that channel is. That service also needs to be built with a once and once only approach or mindset, meaning that the document that I provide or that I give to you as a government agency as part of a service, it could be my ID copy, my passport copy, proof of residence, and so on. I need to be providing this document once and once only, meaning that I've already provided that document before. It should now reside into what we call a citizen wallet that is commonly accessible by different government agencies based on consent from the individual, and that would allow for that document to be shared across various digital services that I apply for. And to be able to do that, and to be able to build on that, those services need to be live-based and they need to be anticipatory. Live-based means that they need to understand where you are right now as an individual throughout the live events, the varying live events that you're going through. So for example, if I am someone with a family and I just have had a newborn, for example, when I log into a government portal, a unified government portal, I should be presented with services that have to do with issuing a birth certificate, for example, or issuing an insurance for my newborn, for example, or after a certain period of time, for example, presenting me with the best schools around my area of residence. Anticipatory means that it needs to incorporate artificial intelligence and based
Hemo, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm so
Okay.
sorry, everybody. I've just connected with Kareem Rizkallah. It seems like there's been a disconnect with his audio, and he is just connecting back. Please bear with us because it was an internet connection that's out of our control. I really do apologize. If you could just bear with us for a short while, and we will definitely come back.
Just bear with us for a few more minutes. Kareem is just logging back in. Thank you so much for your patience.
Okay, everyone, it seems like Kareem's taking a little bit more time, so I would like us to move to the fireside questions with the team of experts, because we have Mohammed Seer and we have Brian Chittister, our industry head. So let's get straight into it whilst Kareem comes back. Our first question is to you, Mohammed Seer. What are other examples of whole of government use cases that you've seen that have been successfully implemented?
Yeah, so if we go back to the story that Kareem was telling, we see this kind of challenge in many different aspects of life. I've personally myself experienced this as well. And in particular, I was having this discussion with Kareem about his case, and I was saying, look, wouldn't it have been great if when I or him as a person looking to travel during COVID times went on to the government platform that is providing the information, or whichever platform is providing, and the information is tailored for my specific use case. So asking maybe 2 or 3 questions at the beginning, and then tailoring the advice back to us in form of a content of what it means for me, because each one of our cases can be different. So I may have one step done in the process of, for example, getting the COVID vaccination. Someone may have done 2. Somebody may have a small family with them. So it's coming back to this point of how do you personalize information back to the individual in a way that is palatable and easy to act on. Whether it is a airline's web page, a portal, or an app, or a government web page, portal, or app, all of them seem to be still working in this model of I'll throw all the information at you, you figure out what does it mean to you. And that's where we need to shift towards, where we can really personalize information for individuals. So their time is saved, less friction, and they get exactly what they need. They don't want to spend 2 hours, 3 hours trolling through information to figure out actually what does it mean for me as an individual. And in a lot of cases, the information that we see is contradictory in some ways, or it's not clearly articulated that can be used in a very easy way. So that's a shift where I'm seeing a lot of governments move towards. So you see this live event-based service models that are evolving already. New Zealand is one of the countries in the world which has experimented probably and started this much earlier, or back in 2014, and where they have looked at the birth example that Kareem was given. They have brought together everything and anything related to the birth and for the journey as a mother or as a family, as a parent, till the age of 5 or 6. So if you need information, whether it is pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, birth stage, or after, they have collected all the information that is relevant to you as an individual in one place, both content, what I call tools, so things that you can help use to basically make informed decisions, and also services. So if there are 5 or 6 different government agencies involved in that stage of your life, then they're bringing it all together in one place. So it's a lot easier because you are in that frame of mind. You are thinking of, I have things to do related to the birth of the child. So New Zealand is a good example. Estonia is on that route as well. And particularly moving towards what I call predictive services, proactive services. So rather than you as an individual having to apply for services, I know what stage of life you're in and what is your entitlement, and maybe if there's a benefit that you are now due because you are age 18 or you're retired, I trigger it off as a government rather than you having to apply for that. Same could be in the case of, let's say your passport is expiring. Do I go and apply for a passport or can I just receive a push notification from my government agency to say your passport expiring in 6 months? Would you like me to?
I think Mohammed's frozen now. This is a very strange connection today. I'm really sorry, ladies and gents. We've never experienced such a thing. I have Kareem back here right now. Kareem?
Yes, hi, Hema. Yeah,
Yeah, I think Mohammed's back. Yeah, Mohammed.
Yeah, I think there's something maybe with the platform today that is playing out.
Exactly.
yeah.
That's right.
It doesn't want us all at the same time to be in the same place.
Exactly. Conspiracy. I'll hand it over back to Kareem now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hema, and everyone. Again, apologies for that disconnect. Mohammed, please carry on.
Yeah, so we're just talking about some of the possible areas that we are seeing in governments, and I pretty much covered all of that from a predictive and proactive, and also from a more holistic perspective of how we can bring content, services, tools together in one place and move it towards more of a proactive and predictive model of running government services. And in essence, what we're saying is that in a fragmented world where I, as a citizen or as an individual user, will have to interact with maybe multiple different government agencies, learn about each one of the government agencies, what they do, what they don't do, and learn how to navigate each one of their platforms, which could be different, to a more simplified model, which is horizontal, and creating that one connecting point with me as a user, so I know where to go to get any service information rather than having to figure out different places. So that's the kind of shift that we're seeing a lot now.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that insight, Mohammed.
Thank you.
If I can move over to Brian. Brian, having heard what Mohammed spoke about from a whole of government approach, what are the technology enablers from OpenText that can support that?
Thanks, Kareem. And I'm going to speak until I get cut off too. So
hopefully not.
Yeah, I think one of the things before we kind of jump into technology enablers, one of the things that needs to be addressed is that as you look to adopt a whole of government approach, it really comes down to two things. And you touched on one of the big ones, Kareem, during your opening remarks, is becoming more citizen-centric and really putting the citizen at the heart of what you're doing. I think that's one. And the second is ensuring that all the processes that you've built around the citizen are kind of woven into the fabric of the culture of the organization before you layer technology on. I think that that process-driven approach with the citizen at the heart of what you're trying to achieve is the only way you're going to be successful. And then you can take a look at layering technology on top of that process. I think one of the technology components that we've seen in the industry that's really driven a lot of change, especially as we looked at the challenges around legacy technology and kind of how we can future-proof what the enterprise looks like, is low-code application development platforms. One of the reasons why low-code has picked up so much momentum, not just in the government space, but commercially as well, I would say over the past 4, 5, 6 years, is the agility that it can bring. When you talk about whole of government and some of the use cases you were speaking of, as well as Mohammed, they're so versatile and diversified, and being able to support citizens across that entire ecosystem, as you talked about life events and milestones, being able to support them across that journey takes a platform that can evolve with the citizen as well. And I think with that evolution is one of the reasons why low code's been a really important piece of that puzzle. And I think the other piece is integration. And at the heart of that is really your content and data. Mohammed touched on it earlier. I think one of the biggest things that we've seen in government in the past few years is the shift from being a more reactive entity to a more proactive entity. I like to say taking kind of the Amazon approach. You were talking about predictive services around certain life events. And it's that proactive nature that's really driving governments forward now. At the heart of that is content and data that governments are holding and have of their citizens. And I think it's important that you're able to apply that content to process and ultimately drive those services forward.
Okay, excellent. So you spoke about content, you spoke about low code, you spoke about integration, and I think I fully agree with you. These are at least three components. There may be others, but three components that are fundamental for the ability to, again, to achieve that interconnectedness between governments into that whole of government approach. Thanks a lot, Brian.
And Kareem, if you may, I want to just re-emphasize a point Brian made, which is extremely, extremely important. We need to first be solving the operating model question before we get to the technology one. Because when we talk about moving to live event-based services, actually what you're saying is you're going to change the way you as a government operates. You're going to move away from this kind of siloed model of I'm going to just push out services and content, 20 or 30 different organizations, to I'm going to think about your life event, your stage of your life, and bundle things together and actually manage that. That's not just a technology question and making a nice platform. It actually is about having a different product owner, someone owning that as a product and saying, how do I keep this alive? How do I keep on adding new layers of information? Because life changes. You know, today at the birth stage, maybe there are these services, maybe there are new services, maybe there are new tools available, maybe there's new content. So how do we make sure that we are moving from this business model stage, moving and changing the business model, the operating model, not just, oh, we'll build a technology platform. That's just the channel through which information is going to be presented and provided. Behind that, if we don't have the organization that will enable this, manage it as a product, it will die a death very quickly and really will be static information, which is not useful to anyone.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mohammed. I think whenever I personally talk about transformation with any organization, public sector or other, technology enablers always are a lower tier. At the top comes the operational model and the change that needs to come to that. And I also talk about change management and change particularly in the culture of users. It could be users from a government standpoint or even from a citizen standpoint around enabling them with the new mindset that they need to have to adopt new digital services rather than taking their car and going to a government office. So yeah, thank you for that. And continuing with this, from your perspective, Mohammed, you spoke about one element of change. What are other elements in the roadmap for a complete digital adoption within government?
Let me look at it from quite a broad perspective first, and maybe put some questions that I believe anyone who is embarking on a digital transformation journey should be asking themselves. And as we were talking and I was listening to you, so I kind of framed these questions for myself and I'll read them out. So the first question that we need to be answering for ourselves is, why do I want to change? You know, what is the need or the want that is driving me? We should be very clear on that. Why do I want to change or transform? Number two is, what do I want to transform to? If we don't build that picture of the future, is what does that really amazing world of the future look like? I don't know where I'm going. You know, I'm just doing a lot of activities, but I don't know really where I'm going. And often we miss this component. And I love the fact that working in EY, we came up with a strategy which we call future back design or strategy, which is, let's start with designing the future first before we go on in a conventional way, and let's do an as-is study and all that. So number two question is that. And number three is, what do I look like today? So having a very good, clear view of what I am today is also important. And often you'll be surprised how we don't know that, or at least we have not intuitively known it, or we have a sense of it, but we can't document it and put it structurally forward and say, this is actually what I am today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then moving towards the fourth question, which is, what is the gap between where I want to get to tomorrow, the future state, and where I am today? So I am very clear on that gap between the two states. And how do I basically, what do I do to actually get there? So these are the two fundamental elements of the next stage. And the final, which most of us miss, and even I, is how will I know when I've actually got there?
That's very interesting.
And this is the point, which is, it will become our North Star. And so we have a nice North Star, but it will give us this kind of milestone testing and viewing of how do I monitor, how do I know actually that I have actually arrived at that space of the future where I wanted to be, and I'm delivering the benefits that I want to deliver. So that's what I would basically think through as anyone, whether I'm a government organization or an individual organization, to answer those questions. My journey then becomes quite structured then. And coming back to what are other change elements, very quickly, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Of course, there's going to be a big people element. There's going to be a big cultural element, because today, how to operate in the digital age and the kind of culture you need is different. The leadership style is different to what it was in the past. The tools, the technologies, what we need, the processes we need, all of these will have to be transformed as we go. So holistically, pretty much the whole organization, if we are a building, everything will actually be questioned towards this transformational journey that may have to change. Even, by the way, just finally, one point to make. Often, I was having this conversation yesterday, we miss the physical form. So I am even now having conversations and trying to convince authorities in government who have the mandate for digital transformation that in your digital strategy, please think about the physical space. Government today has many offices. Yeah. What does that beautiful fusion of technology look like between the online and the offline world that you create through these physical spaces? You don't need the same. You need some other form of a model of operating, yeah? And especially COVID has shown us that we can work from home, we can remote work, but we still need a physical space. So what does that futuristic physical space look like for our government of the future? I'll pause at that.
Perfect. No, thank you. I'd like to sum this up for everyone who's listening, because I think you spoke about 5 questions. Why do I want to change? What do I want to change to? Where am I today? What are the gaps between where I am and where I want to get to? And finally, how do I know that I arrived to where I want to arrive? So I think these are 5 very simple questions, but they are dangerously simple, because I think that a lot of people, as you rightly mentioned, they don't really think about them, and they are essential in being able to build a strong roadmap. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And finally, Brian, so looking at this roadmap, could you give us some examples of how OpenText was able to support government agencies and achieve success in these kinds of projects?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mohammed, I couldn't agree with you more. I love the questions. And when I break it down and we work with customers, I like to use a car analogy. If I'm going to purchase a new car, am I just taking my old car and just buying any new car just because it's new? And I consider that analogous to kind of what we've seen as IT modernization. But when we're really being strategic, it's figuring out, what am I going to use my car for? Is it just that I need an eco-friendly car that gets a really good gas mileage because I need to use it to commute back and forth to work? Do I need something that's a little bit bigger because I have a bigger family? Am I going to be taking it out into more rural areas and I need something that is a 4-wheel drive vehicle? You're just being more strategic and understanding, ultimately based on what your needs are, what type of platform it is that you really need to be successful. And when we work with our government customers, we try to bring that level of strategy into it, not only around deployment but also adoption. both internally and externally. So I think that's an important component of this. Three customers that come to mind initially. One is the Government of Canada. We work with 86 different departments within the Government of Canada, kind of integrating everything. And the common thread there is not only content, but also process. It's looking to build out process across the pieces of content and helping them be more proactive and also compliant at the same time, which is one of the big value propositions that we bring to the Government of Canada, because there is so much content there, but then applying that layer of process on top of it. The next is in the United States with the National Institutes of Health. We work with them again around content process, especially during the pandemic. One of the big institutes there, National Institute for Allergies and Infectious Disease. It was the leading institute looking to combat the pandemic and actually working with some of the vaccine companies to get the vaccine approved. So we worked with them to support those processes as well as compliance. And you would imagine that the amount of content is not only vast, but the need to be compliant, especially regulatory compliance in that industry, life sciences industry, was a crucial piece of that, which is a big value that OpenText brings. And then during the pandemic, obviously the processes that they were layering on top of some of the challenges that they had were diverse, which we talked about earlier, which is something that the platform supports. And finally, I don't want to steal his thunder because I know Garrett is going to be speaking about the DigiGov platform, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the Government of Netherlands, where they've really done a good job of taking that diversification of process to heart and putting the citizen at the center of what they're trying to achieve and evolve that with the citizen. So I know that's something that Garrett's going to be presenting in a little bit. And I think you'll all get a lot of value out of that to kind of see this in real time and how it can work to support not only the internal government entities, which is obviously vitally important, but also the external stakeholder, the citizen, which is ultimately at the center of what you're trying to achieve.
Thanks a lot, Brian, and that's a perfect segue into the next section. So to everyone on the call, we apologize because we lost a few minutes from our session. We're gonna jump directly to the DGGov section, which is the framework that Brian was just setting up to us, and which has been adopted by a number of government organizations, including the Government of the Netherlands. We're gonna make sure that everyone here receives the PowerPoint in its entirety so that you can have access to our slides. And we look forward, obviously, to the questions during this session. So, Gerrit, over to you.
Thank you very much, Karim. To give you an introduction about what we've done for previous customers and our OpenText DigiGov platform, allow me a few minutes to demonstrate the capabilities of what OpenText can offer to government agencies. The OpenText DigiGov solution is an e-services case management solution built using the renowned OpenText AppWorks platform. The OpenText AppWorks platform is a low-code application development framework that accelerates the build or the development of turnkey solutions with limited IT resources, and of course, out-of-the-box integration with various leading line of business applications. Now, displayed at the moment is the DGGov homepage. The homepage provides the e-services case administrator access to various DGGov modules. The first module here is the case management module, which provides an e-services case worker with a 360 view of various cases within an organization. Cases are captured from various channels. This includes your citizen or customer-facing portals, emails, mobile apps, as well as document capturing solutions, just to name a few. The workflow management allows case administrators to easily create and define specific business processes, driving the lifecycle of each case type. The SLA management module defines service levels agreements or service levels and escalations for each case type. The task list management module provides a flexible task checklist to be completed against each case lifecycle stage by an assigned case worker. Using the team management module, case administrators can create, define, and allocate roles against use cases or case types. Users can then be assigned case roles. As an example, a case worker or a case administrator, specific content attached to it, and a content repository like a digital wallet where case documents are stored and managed. The documents module defines the case document types and folder hierarchy for each case type. And lastly, of course, to allow for quick migration from legacy solutions to your new OpenText DGGov solution, we provide migration tools to bulk migrate users, roles, cases, and content from various legacy systems to your new DGGov solution. Now, let's have a look at the DigiGov eServices case management module. Now, as a case worker, I have a view of all the cases assigned to me, assigned to various users and teams within the organization. The first window, of course, is all the eService cases assigned to me as a case worker, as a logged-in user. The next window is all the tasks that is assigned to me relevant to these specific cases and the due dates of these tasks. The team cases windows displays all cases assigned to team members or a team that I'm a part of. On the right-hand side, I can see all new cases that has been unassigned. Now, these unassigned cases can automatically be assigned to a caseworker using an AI technology to look at, for instance, the KPI, the content of the case as an example. But let's go and have a look at one of these unassigned cases. Now, my current role that I'm logged in is the case administrator. When opening a new case, the case administrator has got a view of all the relevant information related to the case. The case administrator, in this case, notice the details of this request comes from a specific citizen, Gary Green, as an example. The type of the e-service request, in this case, it's a permit to extend a villa. So this is probably a land department e-service case. And the case administrator can now make a decision to assign the case to a specific caseworker. Okay, and this could be automatically done as well. But let me go and assign this specific case to a case. Now, of course, completely integrated with your authentication services or your Active Directory services, I'm going to assign this to the permits and licenses team. And I'm going to select a specific user to start working on this case. I also would like to send maybe a note to this caseworker that this case is very urgent. So I'm going to use the Notes tab to create a simple note. And treat with priority, please. Okay, so this is internal notes between me and the caseworker. Now I've updated some of the metadata. These are still editable, but I can now submit the case to the next life cycle, which is assigned. So now I can submit the case, and the case will now be assigned to a specific caseworker. We can see that the life cycle is now moved on to the next stage of the case, which is assigned. Let me go back to my homepage of the caseworker and start working on the specific case. Now, as a caseworker, I can now see that this case has been assigned to me, a permit for extension to a villa and my street address, and I can open up this specific case. Now, the caseworker has got a 360 view of all the information related to the case in a single window. This includes the notes that the case administrator has assigned to me. I can reply to this note as well and say, I will take priority on this. Okay, internal notes, internal discussions that I can use. Okay. The caseworker can make a decision at this stage to either start working on this case, or I can either revoke this case and put it back into the unassigned case, or if I don't have time or going on vacation, I can forward the case to another user in my team. But let me go and start working on this case. Now, once I start working on the case, each life cycle of the case have got specific tasks to complete. So in the task tab, I can see the first task that has been assigned to me related to the case is to notify the case requester that we are working on your case. So this is a task that has been assigned to me, and communicating to the case initiator could either be done through push messages, or I can manually or automatically send out an email. In this case, I would like to send out an email to the citizen itself, telling him that we are working on your case. Now, the email solution is tightly integrated to AppWorks. I've got a few templates that's already pre-populated with the case metadata. In this case, I'm going to select the case status and click on the OK button. I can see my email body is already populated with some case details, and I can send that off to the citizen itself. Now, the citizen, of course, is using Outlook as an example. So here in my Outlook, I can receive the new case. Okay, the case has been assigned. Thank you very much. But I would also like to reply to this specific user or the specific case system to remind him that this is an urgent case. Okay, and I'm going to send that, of course, back to the e-government or DigiGov framework. The case worker, of course, will receive all the mails that is being correspondence, or the correspondences between me and the citizen will all be contained again in a single window. I can receive the new emails and, of course, reply and forward the emails. Okay. The case worker is going back to his tasks and say, well, let me open up the task. And of course, KPIs is important, and I need to manage the time spent on each case. The case worker can say claim a task and complete a task, and all the time allocated to specific tasks are monitored. I can complete my task, and I can start working on the next task that is assigned to me. Going back to the case, I can now see that the next task assigned to me is to make sure that all the documents required for this specific extension to the villa is available, and that the citizen have uploaded all these documents when he initiated the case. I'm going to use the case documents tab over here, where I've got access to all the documents or attachments or content related to the case. Over here, I've got a folder which is called case requester documents, where the case requester have uploaded various types of documents. Now, the system supports various types of documents, PDF, Microsoft Word, Office documents. In addition to that, we also support, enhanced documents like, for instance, AutoCAD drawings. Now, as a case worker, of course, I don't have AutoCAD installed, but the DigiGov framework allows you to have a built-in viewer where I can now view the actual drawing that is submitted by the citizen to extend his villa. And I can look at the changes that has been requested. I can also make some comments on the specific drawing itself and mark the specific area where the extension of the villa is going to take place. And of course, I can save this markup or this comments on the drawing. Okay. And I've looked at what is this extension about. I can minimize my view again, and I can look at various other documents itself. I'm happy with all the documents that has been attached. If I'm missing a document, again, I can use the email correspondence to notify the user that the documents are missing. So again, on this case, I can now open up this specific task and say, all the documents are and I can complete the specific task. So I validated that all the documents required for this specific request is available. The next task, of course, that I'm going to receive is that to issue the permit. I've evaluated the request, all the documents are available, and I'm ready to basically issue the permit for the user. Again, I can use the case management, the documents tab, and then simply drag and drop a specific permit. Now, again, the document could be auto-generated by the system itself, or I can simply just drag and drop various types of documents into the repository where all my documents are contained. Okay. So the document, the permit has been issued. The permit is could be an electronic document. Again, going to my task and saying that, yes, the permit has been issued. And I can complete my task. The last stage in this example is to send the permit to the user. Now, of course, the permit can go through various other processes that's available in the DGGov. So the permit generation could be automated. We do also apply the digital signature capability if the permit can be digitally signed, so that the OpenText core digital services, signature services, can electronically sign this permit and send this permit automatically to the citizen. But in this case, I'm just going to send it as an email and mail the permit back to the citizen that requested the permit. And looking at the attachments, I can look at the permit that I've just uploaded, select the permit, and send that off to the citizen itself. The citizen, of course, will receive the email in his Outlook or his preferred channel that he wants to access your DGGov framework. And the caseworker can then now make a decision that the case is resolved, and it will go into the next phase of the life cycle where the case is resolved. As a citizen, of course, opening my Outlook, just doing a quick send and receive over here, I can now find my case has been resolved and the permit is now available in the email itself. Yeah. Great.
This is great, Gerrit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and any questions, please post it in the chat. Back to you, Karim. That's
a great demo. Thank you very much, Gerrit. And actually, we do have a couple of questions on the chat that were sent directly. So first of all, I think one of the questions is whether this DGGov framework is a product from OpenText or more of a framework. And I think that this is more for you, Gerrit.
The DigiConnect framework is an accelerator. So the main product is the OpenText AppWorks framework, which drives the DigiConnect framework. So the DigiConnect framework is sort of a solution accelerator that can be given as part of the OpenText AppWorks framework. A pre-configured solution that's got pre-configured cases already defined in the solution itself.
Okay, so that's something that can enable a government organization not to start from scratch.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's great. And then another question, more on OpenText as an organization, whether we've talked a lot, of course, about managing content. The question is whether OpenText is an ECM company or do we provide other solutions? Of course, we did not go deep into what solutions OpenText provides, but OpenText primarily or predominantly is an enterprise information management organization. So while our core domain could be considered as content services provider, we have diversified our portfolio for a while now, for quite a period of time, to venture into automating processes that have to do with content, or sometimes even not, through our low-code development solutions that Brian alluded to. Areas such as artificial intelligence and analytics that allow us to be able to take information from a content services platform or from third-party applications, build a data lake, and start to apply things like text mining and analytics, as well as AI algorithms for predictive or prescriptive analytics processes. Things like digital experience platforms, and how do we, like the example that Gerrit was showing us today, how can I automate the process of issuing out a communication to an end user, basically around things like the issuance of a license and issuance of an NOC letter, for example, or something like this. So these are all examples of enterprise information management solutions that OpenText provides, and OpenText, for anyone who has had the chance of working with us before, is considered as a leader in every single one of those domains. Of course, we would be happy to have further conversations with you around the various solutions that OpenText provides at large, and in particular on the public sector or the government domain, like the DGGov solution that Gerrit has demonstrated to us, and to explain to you even more about some of the other successes that we have locally here in the region, be it the UAE, Saudi Arabia, or other countries within the Middle East. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for their time. I'd like to thank our panel, Mohammed, Brian, and Gerrit for their participation. I wish you a great day and hope to hear from everybody again soon. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. That wraps up our session for today. It was really informative. Thank you to our presenting partner, OpenText. Thank you, Kareem. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Gerrit. Thank you, Brian. That wraps it all. And thank you so much for attending today's session. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.